D&D is a combat-heavy system. Most abilities revolve around combat options to the point that it's considered one of the major problems with a lot of martial classes. Combat takes a long time. There's a lot of rules interactions that slow things down, as well as standard human indecision. On the player side, there's a few things you can do to help with this. There's plenty of videos on it, but mostly it comes down to knowing when your turn is, what you're capable of, any objectives of the fight, and planning ahead. Things like rolling damage and to hit at the same time help too. For DMs, it's trickier. Often the DM will be running monsters they've not used before, and they have to adapt to the player's actions much more than the inverse. They can still roll damage and to hit at the same time, and read through monsters in advance so they know what they're capable of, but double checking a monster's features mid-combat is often necessary. I found myself forgetting passive features monsters have completely as a result of not doing this. A combat is always in one of three states. The players have more actions than the monsters, the players and monsters have similar amounts of actions, or the monsters have more actions than the players. As a DM, most of the time we want to aim for a similar amount of actions between players and monsters. It helps reduce downtime for players while making the monsters a decent challenge. However, sometimes the situation calls for very few or very many monsters. This ends up weighting the combat towards one of the other two options. When this action economy, as you may have heard it called, is against the monster, there is a solution: legendary monsters. This gives a solo monster additional actions it can use at the end of player turns, allowing the balance to swing back towards the middle. But what about the inverse? What about when there's a lot of monsters in comparison to the players? From what I can tell, there's no such solution built into the game for large groups of monsters. Think hordes or teams. When you run lots of enemies against a party, you end up with clogged initiative and lots of downtime for the players, draining all the fun from the combat. The problem is only worsened if the players have NPC allies. The DM is rolling even more, and while the combat may be more in the player's favour, they're still spending upwards of 75% of the game waiting around for their turn. Downtime gets worse when you try to balance out the imbalance of actions with allies. I've heard advice numerous times that grouping monsters in initiative is a good idea. I agree. This doesn't fix the number of rolls the DM has to make, however. When it comes to swarming players with creatures, there are minimal options to deal with this problem. The most obvious, of course, is swarms. Swarms try to solve this problem by taking lots of low-level creatures, think rats, insects, or other tiny creatures, and giving the group a new stat block. The swarm trait gets added, and it gets an attack that deals damage based on hit points, and the group get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Simple. The issue with swarms is that there are very few of them in the game, and they're all for very low level creatures. The highest CR swarm I found was a swarm of cranium rats at CR 5, with the base creature a CR 0. Similarly, a swarm is restricted by being in one position. The whole swarm moves as one, attacks as one, and is a set size. This doesn't help for running something like bandits, for instance. We could make a swarm of bandits, but it wouldn't make sense to do so. The Dungeon Master's Guide has a short section for mobs on page 250 that in theory could solve this problem. It suggests not rolling attack rolls and instead noting down the d20 roll needed to hit a character at the start, then referring to a table to see how many attacks hit based on the number of creatures making attacks. Different PCs will have different ACs, and I'm not convinced this will speed things up much. The main issue I see with this solution is that it removes the variability from a combat. The number of creatures determines when attacks hit, not the chance element of rolling a die. It is, however, a valid approach, and I recommend using it if the system I'm presenting here seems too unwieldy. While researching for this video, having already made my system, I came across a solution for running hordes by Sly Flourish, which, as it turns out, arrived at several of the same solutions I did. His solution focuses on true hordes in comparison to my system, which focuses on a slightly smaller scale solution. I'll put a link to the blog post in the description. My solution to the problem is a new system for D&D, in a similar vein to swarms: squads. A squad has one health pool, one movement pool, and less attacks than the number of creatures it represents, but still gives the impression of being a group by allowing autonomy for each individual within the squad. Their attacks hit harder, and instead of that damage reducing as the fight goes on, the number of attacks they can make falls as members die. Squads can replace up to 8 identical creatures, and therefore their stat block, with a single stat block. The aim is to unclog initiative, through grouping, as mentioned earlier, without bogging down the game with lots of attack rolls. The documents I created for this video include full instructions for using an existing stat block to convert to a squad, but we'll go through a simple squad here. The simpler the base creature's stat block, the easier a squad will be to run. Bandits are good because they have no passive features and simple attacks. You'll notice a few things are different in the squad variant compared to the base stat block. The biggest addition is, of course, the squad trait. This allows the majority of the mechanics the squad relies upon. The other major changes you'll see are hit points, speed, damage, multi-attack, and limit. Hopefully the squad trait is fairly self-explanatory, so hit points are up first. I chose to forego the typical hit dice method of hit points in favour of simplifying for the DM. Squads therefore round hit points of the base creature to the nearest 10, with 5 rounding down, and multiply this amount by the number of creatures in the squad. The main exception for simplified hit points is in the case of creatures with very low hit points, like commoners. In those cases, the normal individual hit points are used instead. This system speeds up hit point tracking, with the squad trait allowing individuals to still be killed. The squad trait solves the problem of healing potentially resurrecting squad members by reducing the maximum hit points of the squad when a member dies. Speed and limit are next. You'll notice that the speed has 2 parts, a typical speed and a limit speed. To calculate the overall speed, the base creature speed is multiplied by half the number of squad members. Limit speed is simply the base amount of speed the individual creature had, and applies per member of the squad. No member can use more speed on a turn than that amount, unless a dash action is used. Limit works similarly for multi-attack, bonus actions, and spellcasting when the creature has them, limiting what an individual within the squad is capable of. Multi-attack and damage work together here. If, in the case of the bandits here, the base creature doesn't have multi-attack, it gains it, equal to half the number of current squad members. Note that this means that the squad makes less attacks than the individuals would, with the number of attacks reducing as the squad members die. In order to maintain the damage per round, or DPR, that the creatures should deal, we double the damage of each attack. There are rules included in both the free and paid document for scaling multi-attack on creatures that already have it. And that's how it works. Spellcasters are more complex to create squads from, but I have included rules to account for them. Likewise, recharge abilities have been adapted. Squads tend to work best for minion level monsters with minimal features, and the system won't work for every monster, simply due to the nature of some features and traits. While I'm very happy with the system, it's not without issues. On the mechanical side, temporary hit points don't work, with their use breaking the simplified hit points system, and spellcasting is still very time consuming, so it's best avoided. For a DM, there are some other potential problems. Bloodied signifiers, describing the monster as badly damaged or hurt when it reaches below half its health, don't work, and monsters can die in one hit if a companion has been hit a lot first, potentially breaking immersion somewhat. That being said, these aren't as big problems as the one being solved, and even these problems are possible to mitigate. Players tend to focus one creature at a time, meaning the problem of a creature being killed by a glancing blow is unlikely. The other primary DM issue here is solved by the old staple, communication. Let your players know that these creatures are clearly working together, and that one creature being damaged hurts the resolve of the group. You can use this to explain why a glancing hit might kill. Depending on the group, however, you might just want to state that bloodied signifiers won't be used, because it doesn't mesh with the mechanics. The visual indicator of the number of squad members left standing will have to do. As for the mechanical problems, well, I plan to work on this more in future, in the hopes of finding a solution to these problems, but I'm also opening the door to all of you. The free/pay-what-you-want document this month is released under the Creative Commons BY 4.0 license. That means if you want to use these mechanics in your own works, you can. All you need to do is include a short passage crediting me for my work alongside the typical credit to the SRD through the OGL or Creative Commons license. As ever, you can find a link to the Google Drive document in the description. You'll also find links to itch.io and DriveThruRPG there, where you can get both documents. If this was helpful to you, please like the video and leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. So go, take my system and use it in your games. Build on it, hack it to pieces and build a Frankenstein's monster system of your own with it. Above all, Have fun, and I hope you find it useful.